I don't know what you've been up to during lockdown, but I've been locked in my shed most of the time, and I thought I'd introduce it to you this morning. This is my shed, and I'll just close the door, take my overalls off, my hat, shut the door. As you can see, there's some very interesting things in a workman's shed. There's some tools. This is a chisel, and it's used for gouging out wood. And this is a screwdriver for taking screws out. This is I've got 3 planes. What I found with planes is that the sharper the blade, the better it is. There's a lesson from the Bible there, isn't it? To be really sharp. What I want to speak about today is the old-fashioned hammer. And this is a claw hammer that I suppose everybody uses from time to time. The question I have to ask you this morning is, what can you remember your first recollection of life being? And if I cast my mind back, one of my first recollections of life is that I remember being carried on my father's shoulder. He was a big lad, and he would lift me up, turn me over, and put me on his shoulders, and I would use sometimes his head as a drum to beat. He didn't like that very much. And it was a wonderful thing. I couldn't have been very old, but he lifted me up and he put me on his shoulders. One of my greatest pleasures in life was to see my dad lifting my own children up. Particularly my brother and myself. We were 2 boys in our household, and we didn't have any sisters. And when my daughter was born, he absolutely adored her. And one of my favourite photographs is my dad holding my daughter Bethan up in his arms and grasping onto her like if it was his very life he was holding. And we can all remember these things, can't we? But one of the wonderful things of my life is that I remember being lifted up by God. It's a wonderful experience. We all need it frequently, very often. And we all need to be taken out of ourselves and be brought near to God. And I suppose this hammer reminds us of what God does in our life. Sometimes we are set in our ways, like this nail in this wood by here. And this claw hammer is used to drag us out and lift us up and brought into a new way of living, a new way of life that we need to be living. And that's what God does. We read about it in Psalm number 40. Let me read it to you. This is what the scriptures say. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. We can all think of times in our life when various people give us a lift. Perhaps it's in a car or perhaps it's in a bus. But the most wonderful experience that we can have is to be lifted up into God's arms and into his very presence. May we just dwell on those verses today in Psalm 40 and may they refresh our souls. God bless you today, wherever you are in this coronavirus.